the hidden Angola prison mystery that shocked investigators. Why so many inmates fear the walls of Angola prison. If you think the secrets inside Angola are disturbing now, wait until you hear what investigators uncovered next. Hit subscribe, like, and comment, because this story only gets darker from here. The sirens cut through the still Louisiana morning as deputies raced across the enormous stretch of farmland that surrounded Angola prison, an institution so large that people often joked it had its own weather system. But nothing about this morning was funny. Fog rolled across the fields like a slow-moving tide, masking the outlines of the old guard towers and the distant shouts of officers scrambling inside the compound. At 6:17 a.m., a prison worker discovered something strange near the edge of Field Line C, one of the massive agricultural zones where incarcerated men had labored for generations. The worker was driving a transport cart when he spotted a figure lying motionless near a drainage line. At first, he thought it was an abandoned jumpsuit. But as he approached, his breath tightened. It was a man. A fully conscious man, staring up at the sky, but completely unable to speak. His name was Derek Givens, a 38-year-old inmate serving a long sentence. He wasn't part of that morning's assigned work detail. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near Field Line C. And yet there he was, eyes wide, breathing in shallow bursts, confused, disoriented, and unable to recall how he got there. Deputy Marcus Lefevre arrived first. A veteran officer who had spent 15 years inside Angola's labyrinth of farmland and cell blocks, Lefevre had seen almost everything. But the look in Givens's eyes unsettled him. The inmate wasn't injured, not visibly. No wounds. No bruises. No signs of a struggle. But he appeared terrified, as if something had shocked him so deeply that he hadn't recovered. Two more deputies lifted Givens gently, seating him upright. When they asked what happened, he mouthed one word, barely audible. Basement. Lefevre frowned. There's no basement here. But before he could say more, a sergeant rushed over, calling him toward the drainage ditch. Something else had been found. Half buried under wet soil was a rusted metal box, no bigger than a shoebox. No inmate should have had access to it, not in this area, not in this soil. And certainly not sealed shut with a thin strip of electrical tape. Lefevre slid gloves on, lifted the box out, and wiped away the mud. Inside were papers. Old papers, documents, facility logs, and what looked like personal notes. Some dated back more than 30 years. Others were recent, printed on modern forms but never filed. One document in particular made his stomach drop. It was a transportation order. Filed, approved, and stamped. But never carried out. The name on the order? Derek Givens. And the date of the scheduled transfer was yesterday. Lefevre immediately radioed the warden. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Warden Caldwell Rivers arrived within minutes, his radio crackling nonstop. Angola had a long, complicated history. Strict confinement, a farm-based labor model, sprawling fields larger than many towns. Investigations over decades had highlighted concerns about staffing shortages, health services, and conditions. But even with all that history, Caldwell sensed this incident was different. "Where did you find this?" he demanded. "Just there," Lefevre said. "Half buried." "And Givens?" He said, "Basement?" "Yes, sir." Caldwell's expression hardened. Angola didn't have basements in its modern wings, at least none that were officially recorded. Some of the oldest structures dated back to when the prison was a plantation. There were rumors that sections of old storage rooms, root cellars, and storm shelters still existed beneath certain buildings, forgotten and sealed off. Most staff dismissed those stories. But Caldwell had worked here long enough to know that Angola's past was never entirely buried. As he studied the rusted box, a second document caught his eye, a hand-scribbled note. He found the room. "Move him tonight." Caldwell folded the note into his pocket before anyone else could see it. He looked over at Givens, now wrapped in a blanket and sitting upright with a medic. The inmate kept staring toward the main compound, eyes fixed on nothing visible. "What room?" Lefevre whispered. Before Caldwell could answer, a radio crackled loudly. "Warden, we've got an issue." The entrance to storage block D is unlocked, and there's evidence someone's been inside. Caldwell's heartbeat quickened. Storage block D was one of the oldest structures on the property, built long before the modern wings. Mostly empty, rarely used. And if rumors were true, if there really was an old basement beneath it, then whatever Givens saw might not just be old history resurfacing. It might be something someone didn't want discovered. Caldwell stared at the rusted box, the transfer order, and the terrified man before him. He exhaled slowly. "Marcus," he said, "get a team. We're going into storage block D." But he didn't tell anyone what he feared most. If the old rooms under Angola truly existed, someone had been using them, and Givens wasn't supposed to survive long enough to talk. The old wooden door to storage block D groaned as Deputy Marcus Lefebvre pushed it open. Dust swirled through the beam of his flashlight, drifting like ash across the stale air. The building was one of Angola's oldest structures, a relic from the plantation era, built with thick timber walls and iron brackets that had somehow survived a century of heat and storms. Warden Caldwell Rivers stepped inside, his boots echoing off the hollow floorboards. Behind him followed two more deputies, all of them tense, all of them aware that whatever waited in this forgotten space had frightened Derek Givens so badly he'd lost the ability to speak. "Stay sharp," Caldwell whispered. Storage block D was supposed to be empty, used only for outdated equipment, spare uniforms, and things the prison kept but didn't need. But as the group advanced deeper inside, something felt wrong. A faint draft brushed against their legs, cold, unnatural, and coming from the floor. Lefebvre crouched and pressed his hand to the wood. A hollow sound vibrated beneath his palm. "Sir, this place has another level." Caldwell didn't respond at first. His jaw tightened. He'd heard rumors since he was a young corrections officer, talk of old cellar rooms built long before modern Angola existed. Rooms used to store equipment, food, tools. Rooms sealed off when new wings were constructed. Rumors he always dismissed, until now. Behind a stack of broken farm tools sat a narrow metal hatch, half covered in dust. The handle had been polished by recent use. Someone had been down there, recently. Caldwell exchanged a glance with Lefebvre, then nodded. Lefebvre pulled the hatch open. Cold air surged upward like a breath from underground. A narrow staircase led down into darkness. Flashlights cut through the gloom as the team descended into the hidden space. The walls shifted from old timber to stone, rough, uneven, sweating moisture. Angola was built on layers of history, and this part felt untouched by time. Halfway down, Lefebvre noticed scratch marks on the wall, deliberate, scattered, and fresh. Someone had braced their hands there. Recently. At the bottom of the stairs, the room widened. It smelled of damp earth and rusted iron. But the first thing Caldwell noticed wasn't the smell. It was the sound. A low hum, faint, mechanical. "What is that?" one deputy whispered. Lights flickered to life as Lefebvre swept his flashlight across the far wall. And then they saw it. A row of old metal filing cabinets, dented and corroded. Next to them sat crates stamped with decades-old facility codes. On a table lay paperwork, facility logs, incident reports, movement schedules. Not officially filed. Not digitally recorded. Hidden. Caldwell approached the nearest cabinet. The lock had been broken. Inside were folders, some yellowed with age, others printed just months earlier. Lefebvre lifted one marked with Givens's inmate number. Inside he found a transfer order, different from the one in the metal box. This one was stamped as complete. "But the man never left," Lefebvre murmured. "This says he was moved to another wing last night." Caldwell's pulse quickened. Someone had falsified records, filed them in a secret room, then scheduled an undocumented transfer. That meant someone with clearance, someone inside the prison, was manipulating inmate movements off the books. Deputy Harris opened another drawer. "Sir, you need to see this." Inside were dozens of similar folders. Duplicate transfer orders. Incident reports marked resolved that never reached the official database. Logs showing inmate locations that contradicted digital records. There was a system, hidden, organized, deliberate. A shadow shifted in the corner. Everyone froze. Lefebvre raised his flashlight. Someone was standing behind an old equipment rack. A man in a correctional uniform, breathing hard, face pale under the beam. Hands where we can see them, Lefebvre ordered. The man didn't move. His hands trembled slightly. Officer Bennett? Caldwell said, stunned. Bennett was a mid-level guard, quiet, reliable, never noteworthy, until now. Bennett stepped forward, swallowing hard. Warden, you shouldn't be here. Caldwell's voice turned cold. Explain why you're in a sealed room that doesn't exist on any blueprint. Bennett hesitated, then spoke. It's bigger than you think, sir. This room, the files, the transfers. They're not supposed to be found. I only handled the paperwork. I swear. Paperwork for what? Lefebvre pressed. Bennett shook his head, panic rising. You need to leave. If they know you opened the hatch. A loud metallic clang cut him off. Something, or someone, slammed the hatch shut above them. The staircase went dark. Caldwell drew a slow breath. They were trapped. Bennett took a step back, fear in his eyes. You don't understand. If they sealed it, they're coming. And none of us can stop what's about to happen. Caldwell's flashlight flickered as the humming sound grew louder. Lefebvre looked at the warden. Sir, someone just locked us underground. Caldwell stared upward into the pitch-black stairwell. Whoever sealed them in didn't act alone. And whatever they uncovered down here wasn't a simple mistake in paperwork. It was a system someone would do anything to protect. For a moment, nobody in the underground room moved. The silence was thick, broken only by the steady hum vibrating from somewhere behind the old filing cabinets. Warden Caldwell Rivers lifted his flashlight toward the sealed hatch above the stairs, the beam catching specks of dust falling like ash. They were locked in. Deputy Marcus Lefebvre steadied his breathing, shifting his grip on the light. Sir, someone followed us. They waited until we were inside. Bennett swallowed hard, backing away from the staircase. It's not just someone. There's a group, people with access. People who've been doing this for years. Caldwell rounded on him. Doing what, Bennett? What is this place? Bennett hesitated, eyes racing between the cabinets and the doorless stone walls, as though expecting someone to emerge at any moment. This room was built a long time ago. Before Angola was even a prison. It used to be for storage, but someone turned it into a record vault. A private one. Off the books. Lefebvre stepped toward him. But to hide transfer orders? Reports. To hide anything they didn't want federal investigators finding, Bennett whispered. Complaints. Misconduct logs. Movement sheets. Inmate statements. Things that should have gone public decades ago. Caldwell's jaw tightened. This wasn't just sloppy record-keeping, it was deliberate suppression. Who runs it? Caldwell demanded. Bennett exhaled shakily. A few people with high clearance. Supervisors. Former wardens. People you wouldn't expect. It started years ago, to keep the place running, but now. A sudden crash echoed through the room. One of the metal cabinets shook violently, as if something had struck it from behind. Lefebvre swung his light toward the sound, revealing a gap along the back wall. A panel. Slightly misaligned. Caldwell motioned silently. The group approached. Behind the panel was a narrow passageway cut into the stone, old, uneven, leading deeper underground. The hum grew louder from within. We're not staying here, Caldwell said firmly. If someone wants us trapped, this tunnel is our only way out. Lefebvre nodded and stepped into the passage first. The others followed, Bennett shaking as he brought up the rear. The air grew cooler as the tunnel descended, rope-thin cracks letting in faint drafts. After several yards, the passage opened into another chamber, smaller, but outfitted with something that made Caldwell stop short. A radio relay station. Old but functional. With a still-warm power supply. Lefebvre approached the dusty controls. This relay was used recently. Someone was communicating from down here. Caldwell examined the table beside it. Scattered across it were more documents, messages transcribed by hand. Command notes. Scheduling adjustments. Mentions of inmate numbers without names. But one sheet was different. Fresh ink. Recent date. A single line in clean handwriting. Givens found the hatch. Move him at dawn. Lefebvre's voice tightened. This was written yesterday. Bennett stepped backward, trembling. I didn't write that. I only processed the forms they gave me. I never came down here. I swear it. Caldwell studied the relay console. Ascending frequency was still active, locked in place. Whoever used it had been coordinating operations from this hidden room. But before he could examine further, a faint scraping noise drifted from the tunnel behind them. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Lefebvre immediately killed his flashlight. Darkness swallowed them. 3 more steps echoed, then stopped. Bennett's breathing grew ragged. They found us. Caldwell held a finger to his lips. The footsteps resumed, this time moving away. Whoever it was hadn't entered the chamber. Not yet. Lefebvre flicked his flashlight back on, scanning the room for another exit. There, he said. A narrow ladder led upward toward a slatted wooden hatch. Caldwell climbed first, pressing his shoulder to the hatch. It moved slightly, then with a firm shove, swung open. Sunlight poured in, blinding after so long underground. The group emerged into a small tool shed behind the field's sea transport station, barely 30 yards from where Givens had been found. The shed's lock hung broken. Someone had been using it as an access point. As they climbed out, a voice crackled over Caldwell's radio. Warden Rivers, urgent. Investigators from Baton Rouge just arrived. They're asking about the missing transfer files. Caldwell stiffened. Missing files. Hidden rooms. Illicit relays. This wasn't just a cover-up inside Angola. Someone outside the prison was involved. Caldwell looked back at the open shed hatch as Lefebvre climbed out behind him. We need to take everything to the investigators, Lefebvre said. Every paper. Every name. Caldwell shook his head slowly. Not yet. If we bring anything without understanding the full chain, the wrong person might intercept it. Bennett sank onto a crate, head in his hands. They're going to come after me. I didn't want any part of this. Caldwell crouched beside him. Then help us expose it. Bennett lifted his eyes, scared, but determined. What do you need? Names, Caldwell said. Dates. Anyone who accessed this room. Anyone who gave orders. Bennett nodded shakily. I can tell you everything. Before he could continue, the sound of approaching engines rumbled across the field. Multiple vehicles. Not prison trucks. Unmarked sedans. Caldwell stood sharply, scanning the horizon. Someone else was coming for the evidence. And not to help them. He turned to his deputies. Gear up. This isn't over. The unmarked cars rolled to a stop. A figure stepped out. Someone Caldwell never expected to see. And the look on their face said one thing. They already knew what Caldwell found underground.